Good afternoon. I'm David Birnbaum from the University of Pittsburgh, and I'm going to speak today about some of the technological aspects of the electronic edition of the Codex Suprasълският that we are preparing. I will begin with a brief outline of some of the goals and premises of the project. And then I'll give you a brief survey of the history and the features of an edition I prepared in 2008 of what I hope was the briefest text in the Codex Suprasълският, the Life of St. Paul the Simple. I'll discuss the requirements for a new edition of the Codex Suprasълският on the basis of the lessons we learned from Paul the Simple, as it were. I'll talk about what can be automated in the production of this new edition, and also what we will change, that is to say, what will be different. There are some unanswered questions. There are some areas where we are still exploring the possibilities. Some of you may know that the technology for internet publication has changed substantially over the past year with the incipient advent of HTML5 and CSS3, and our edition will track those developments and try to take best advantage of standards conformant opportunities. Our goals for the electronic edition of the Codex Suprasълският are primarily, initially, to support research, both textological and linguistic. This already raises questions because the type of edition that is most useful for textological research may not be the most useful for linguistic research. At a certain level, one of the things that's entailed is the long-standing decision about whether one is preparing an edition of a manuscript or an edition of, in this case, a collection of texts. We ambitiously and unrealistically would like to do both, so we're going to look to reconcile those goals as well as we can. We are concerned about the accessibility of the material. This is a manuscript that now lives in 3 different places. Nobody can sit down and look at them all at once, and access to the original manuscript in those places is difficult. It is an old and rare and valuable volume, and they do not trot it out for anybody who wants to take a look. So the reuniting of the parts of the manuscript and their electronic publication will make the materials accessible to Slavists much more broadly and much more easily than was previously the case. There is always a preservation aspect in that with an edition of appropriate quality, we can reduce the need for people to consult the actual manuscript. That need will never go away, and there are certain things you can't reproduce in an edition, but you can at least limit the extent to which people have to go back and touch the original book. And additionally, the materials could be used for teaching the next generation of students and scholars of Old Church Slavonic. One of our premises is that an electronic edition is not just a paper edition on a screen. That is to say, it is not our goal to produce a picture where you can click in the corner and the pages will turn. That's very attractive, it's nice, it's appealing, it shows people what the book might once have looked like, but that's not the best edition or the most useful edition for a Slavist or a scholar. It gives you that linear access that you don't, it prioritizes that linear access, which may not be the most important thing. It doesn't have remote access, arbitrary accessibility. You could put in a page number, but you can't search for a word. There are a lot of things you can't do with that kind of edition. It serves a purpose, but it doesn't serve all of our purposes. So one of the things we want to do with an electronic edition is be able to provide a variety of views, be able to provide the sorts of indices that allow people to find what they need. We want to integrate the resources so that people can find and unite the different parts of the edition. And we want dynamic content. The requirements of one user may differ from the requirements of another, and we want to make sure that people will be able to find the information they need. I conceive of this edition as a workstation, and what I mean by a workstation is that everywhere you go, everywhere you look, you should be presented with opportunities for what you're going to do next. When you do a search for a word, for example, and you get back a list of places where that word occurs, the system should anticipate what you want to do next. Do you want to search for other words in the context? Do you want a broader context? Do you want a statistical report? And it's our job as editors to anticipate as well as we can. We won't be able to do it perfectly, but to anticipate as well as we can where our users want to go. It is my goal, that I will never realize, it is my goal that nobody will ever have to hit the back button. Every time you go somewhere, you should be able to go where you want to next. In 2008, together with a team of students at the University of Pittsburgh, I prepared an electronic edition of the life of Paul the Simple. The URL is up here. The site is down at the moment. I'm not sure why. It was working earlier today, but it's going to move anyway. I will publish these slides, so you'll be able to take down the URL later. You don't need to write it now. I've published a report on the edition of Paul the Simple in the journal Scripta and eScripta, published by the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences, and I gave an oral report on the project at the International Congress of Slavists in Ohrid. This is what the initial page looks like. Because many of you are sitting in the back of the hall, you can't see the small text, but what's up on the top is the Old Church Slavonic text. It is paragraphed. These paragraphs were introduced by the editor for ease in reading. There are no paragraphs in the manuscript, of course. The line breaks are represented by little slashes, and the page breaks by double slashes. This is the top left window. In the middle window on the left, there is the corresponding Greek text, which we took from Capaldo's contribution to the Bulgarian edition of the manuscript. And those are linked by paragraphs. So when you click on the Greek link in paragraph 1 of the OCS, the Greek text will scroll and show you paragraph 1. We also have a new English translation, which was prepared by my students, and you can click on the English link and that will scroll as well. So for a reading perspective on the text, you can look at, you can read through it as a continuous text, and you can refer to the parallel Greek and the parallel English as you need. Every word is provided with a linguistic commentary. This was, after all, part of a course in Old Church Slavonic, a practical course for graduate students, and their assignment was to prepare the linguistic commentary. So when you click on a word in the Old Church Slavonic, the linguistic commentary column will scroll and show you the commentary on the word. This is backlinked, so when you click on a paragraph, when you click on an entry in the linguistic commentary over here on the right, the main text will scroll and the word will be highlighted. So before I made this slide, I clicked on Boži, and the paragraph scrolls and there's the word Boži. So you can read the paragraphed OCS, which we prepared on the basis of the Helsinki edition. We corrected it against the manuscript, against the facsimile. So you can read the paragraphing, you can see the parallel Greek, you can see the parallel English, and you can see the linguistic commentary. We also prepared a folio view. So on the right side, you see a photograph of a page of the manuscript, and there is a magnifying glass. As you move the cursor over the manuscript page, wherever the cursor sits, the text will be magnified. Now this is a static picture. I'm not on the edition. This is a PowerPoint slide, so it's not moving. But as you move the mouse in the real edition, the place where the mouse is located will be magnified, so you'll be able to see it. Over on the left side, we have the text as it appears in the manuscript, line by line, with the interlinear Greek. So in this case, you are able, this is more of an edition for a scholar, somebody who would be looking at the way the text was prepared in the manuscript. One of our goals here was to address the fact that some users would want the paragraph view, some users would want the interlinear view. We can give them both, and indeed they come from the same file. Under the hood, in the background, this is all one version. If I find a mistake and I correct it in only one place, and it gets corrected throughout the edition. And this is one of the great advantages of an electronic edition. Everything comes from the same place. Now, there was no room in this view to provide a frame or a window for the linguistic commentary, so we implemented it through a mouse-over interface. So when I move the mouse here over the word Polski, the linguistic commentary for that word pops up, and when I move away, it would disappear. This is exactly the same commentary as you saw over on the other view, because again, it's all been generated from the same file. But what I've tried to do in this one was prioritize the sort of reading that a student might do to learn Old Church Slavonic, and in this case, the linguistic commentary is important. Over here, I was prioritizing the sort of view that a scholar might want. A scholar probably doesn't need the linguistic commentary, but just in case it's there, but it's not obtrusive. Most of the time, it sits in the background, and you call on it when you need it. I also provided interfaces for searching the text, and this is one of the things you can do with this kind of edition. So you can search by lemma. So for all of the words in the text, we generate a list of all of the lemmata, all of the head words. These are in a sort of idiosyncratic normalized form, but you get a count of how many times each appears. So the word bin occurs 5 times in different forms, je occurs 16 times, etc. This list is dynamic. This page doesn't exist. It gets built on demand when the user goes to it. And what the system does is it goes into the text, the same text we used to read, it goes into the text and it pulls out and builds this list for you. What this means is that when I go and add another text and then it becomes Paul the Simple plus something else, the list updates itself automatically. It also means that this list can never be out of sync with the actual edition of the text because it's produced directly from the edition. So I drop down this list, I pick what I want to search for, I click on it, and I get this kind of view. So here I did a search for the verb et. It tells me that the verb et occurs 8 times in the life of Paul the Simple. In the left column, you have the form that actually occurs, the verse according to our paragraphing, the folio, the Greek counterpart, they're aligned word by word, part of speech, and some grammatical information. This is the kind of searching that you can't do with just a facsimile edition, but it's one of the things you can do easily with a textual edition. You can also conduct linguistic searching. So in addition to searching by lemmata, as we did up on the top, you can also search by morphological category. So here, for example, it tells me there are 47 adjectives, and of those 36 are masculine, 2 are neuter, 9 are feminine, and you can drop down the lists, and this is faceted searching. You can combine these features any way you want, and it will return the items that match those conditions. So in this case, I've done a search for all of the feminine adjectives, and it tells me that, it gives me a full list of them. It gives me the verse, the folio, the lemma, the Greek counterpart, and some grammatical information. Now, this is as far as I went in the edition of Paul the Simple. Looking forward, you really should be able to go somewhere from this. You ought to be able to click on the Old Church Slavonic word, and it should take you somewhere. You should be able to click on the Greek word, and it should take you somewhere. You should be able to do something with the linguistic features. And this is what I meant by a workstation approach. Every query you launch should take you somewhere else. I also have a full text search. So in this case, I entered the text Antoni with an asterisk. The asterisk is a wild card. It means anything that begins with the string Antoni. And it returns the 11 items that contain that string. There are the forms, locations again, both in the paragraph and the folio view, lemma, Greek, part of speech. Part of speech isn't interesting, surprise, they're all nouns. But and once again, this is a query that should be able to take you somewhere else. So, if we take stock, what we had in the old edition was we had a reading view in paragraphs with parallel Greek and English and with linguistic commentary. We had a folio view with a photographic facsimile, interlinear OCS and Greek, lineated as it is in the OCS manuscript, with mouse over pop-up linguistic commentary. We could search by lemma, we could search by grammatical category, and we could do a full text search. Now, in a more sophisticated edition, we might have combined those in different ways. For example, we could combine the full text search, which lets you specify a string or a substring, with some linguistic faceted searching. We could say find all of the adjectives with a particular grammatical ending that have a certain prefix. And that's a facility that we haven't built in here now, but it's a very simple thing to construct because this is all built out of pieces, and you can stitch the pieces together as you need. As we contemplate a more ambitious edition of the entire Codex Suprastensis, then, we had to consider the technical requirements, that is to say, what we want to do from a technological perspective, and then also the access and distribution requirements. From a technological perspective, the edition must be internet-based. It can't be distributed on CD and DVD because when it's distributed on CD and DVD, it is not accessible. You have to buy the CD, you have to buy the DVD, somebody's making money from it. This is a UNESCO project. This is going to be a free edition on the internet. Anybody can get to it. It's going to be operating system independent. We are not going to tell people you have to run Microsoft Windows or some other operating system. It is going to work in all major browsers. And we're going to make it work in all major browsers because we're going to make it standards conformant. The text will be encoded in Unicode, which is the standard way to encode text in any language. The textual part will be HTML. It will be supported by CSS for styling. There will be some JavaScript support. I put JavaScript in parentheses because it's not technically a standard, but we'll be observing it the way it's implemented in the browsers. There will be no Flash, because Flash doesn't work on all operating systems. There will be no Silverlight. Silverlight is there so that people can make money. Silverlight is not there so that you can read material. There will be none of these proprietary standards. In addition to the technical requirements, we had some access and distribution goals. The edition will be published in multiple places so that it can be accessed more easily. The sites will be available to everyone at no cost. This is not a subscription. Again, this is a UNESCO project. It's supposed to provide a service to everyone. The source files will be available, which is to say, not only can you see the reports that we're generating, you can get the underlying pages, you can get the underlying encoding, and you can write your own programs to deal with it. All of this is going to be available. This is what an open source edition is. It is licensed under a Creative Commons license. The license is attribution. If you use our materials, you have to give credit to the project. Non-commercial. We're not making money out of it. Nobody's going to make money out of it. And share alike. If you want to use our materials, you have to give them away just like we're giving them away. But with that said, this is an edition that's available to everybody. Scholars can use it freely and easily. We had to consider what could be automated in the production of this edition. When I did the life of Paul the Simple, I had to type everything. I had to type in all of the linguistic annotation. I had to manually put in the coding to attach every Old Church Slavonic word to every Greek word. Well, Paul the Simple is 3 folios. The Codex Suprasълski's is 285 folios. I wasn't going to do that much typing. So we wanted to the extent possible, we wanted to come up with a machine-assisted approach. We started with the Helsinki edition that you all probably know, which is an ASCII transcription of the Codex Suprasълski's. We converted that to Unicode and then to XML. We could do that in an automated way. There were errors in it, which we've had to correct through proofreading, and that happens all the time. There will probably be errors in our edition too, but fewer than in the others, I hope. As I said, we're generating multiple reports from a single source, so we don't have to encode information separately for the paragraph view and the interlinear view and the database that supports the searching. The information is only encoded once. So we could still make a mistake, but we're not going to make the kind of mistake that's going to be correct here and incorrect there. If there's a mistake, we'll find it and we'll fix it. On an automated level, we can link the OCS and the Greek. So the interlinear rendition of the Old Church Slavonic and the Greek is easy. Linking it on the word level is harder. I'll get to that later. We can link the folio view, that is to say the interlinear Greek and Old Church Slavonic on the one hand, and the photograph on the other. We can link those very easily on the page view, on the page level. We can also link them on the line level. So when you're on a particular line in the transcription, we can highlight the line in the facsimile. We don't do that in Paul the Simple, but that technology is now mature. We can use that. Linking on the word level is more complicated. I'll talk about that later. Probably the biggest time saver in this edition is that we can use computer tools to perform a lot of the linguistic annotation. And my colleague from Norway will discuss this aspect of the project when she gives her presentation later. We can also generate reports of various sorts very easily. So if we are interested in tabular reports or graphs or some diagrammatic representation of information about the manuscript, that's very easy to extract automatically. There are things we cannot automate. These will not surprise you. There are errors in the Helsinki corpus, and there are errors in the Greek texts in the Zaimov and Capaldo edition, and somebody has to fix those manually. Somebody has to read through it, somebody has to touch every word. And that work is being conducted now under Anisa Valentinova's direction in the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences. A lot of it has already been done. The paleographic and other diplomatic annotations have to be made manually. This isn't something a computer can do. You need a philologist. This will give us all comfort. We are still needed. The linking in the folio view, the linking at the line level is easy. It's easy. There is technology that will let us recognize in an automated way where the lines are in a manuscript. So we can mark those lines in the picture, and we can associate them with lines in a transcription. It is much harder to do it at the word level, for obvious reasons. We don't have the spacing, we don't have the same distribution of white and black as we have on the vertical dimension. So if we are going to associate on the word level, we're going to have to do it manually. I don't know whether we're going to do that or not. It's an expensive operation in terms of time. And similarly for the Greek, we can automate the linking on the line level. If we're going to do it on the word level, somebody has to touch every word. There are some changes we're introducing in the new edition, and I'm going to, some we know we're introducing and some where we know we have to change something, but we're not sure what we want to do yet. In the linguistic annotation for St. Paul the Simple, we used very idiosyncratic citation forms. My colleague at the University of Pittsburgh, Oscar Swan, wrote a grammar of Old Church Slavonic, and he has his own idea about how one represents the lemmata. So, for example, this is one of our annotations. When the form vizaki occurs, the lemma that it refers to is vizapid. Now, this is not Old Church Slavonic. You do not find two front ears in a row. And this is an abstract representation. It is an idiosyncrasy of his system. In the context of our department, as a practicum for our students, it made sense for them to know how to use Professor Swan's grammar. For a scholarly edition, we want to use something that's standard. We want to use something that's generally accepted by the scholarly community. So we will move to a standard reference system for the lemmata. There's a different goal for the Suprasълският edition. It's for the scholarly community. For St. Paul the Simple, it was for students. The linguistic annotation, as I said before, was introduced manually for Paul the Simple, and for the Codex Suprasълскиensis, it will be introduced substantially with the help of computer tools. And the main reason we're doing that is just because of the scope. We don't have the manpower to introduce all of that information manually. There are several changes we want to make in the user interface. Paul the Simple has been rendered in an HTML frame set. Those of you who work with internet publications may be aware that HTML frame sets are now deprecated, as they say, which is to say it's an old standard that is not widely supported in the newest browsers. The more current technology is a sort of pseudo-frame implemented with cascading style sheets. So we're going to move to that kind of representation. It's better supported in the browsers. It's easier for the user. It's a more mature standard. It will be transparent to the user. The user will still see the panels and frames, but what goes on behind the scenes will be easier for us to manage. One of the most exciting developments is in the old edition, although we used Unicode, we used standard character sets, not everybody has Unicode, has full Unicode font support. There are characters for Old Church Slavonic, that Unicode characters that aren't necessarily supported in the fonts on your computers. So for Paul the Simple, we gave you free fonts, and we said, download this font and install it, and then when you use it, you could read the edition. There is a newer technology called web fonts, and they are supported in all of the modern browsers, and they let us give you the font when you ask for the page. You don't even know that you're being given a font. When the page appears, the font comes along with it, and it renders the information the way it should be rendered. One of the most exciting advantages of web fonts is that with the advent of iOS, the operating system on the iPad and on the iPhone, iOS is a closed system. You can't install a font. Even if we give you a font, you can't install it. But web fonts work on these closed systems. So what we will do by transferring our font support from the old system where you had to download and install a font to the new system is you won't have to think about it. Whatever system you're on, you'll see the text the way you're supposed to see it. The font will come with it. In the edition of Paul the Simple, the images are linked only on the level of the folio. So it's one page facing one page. Because of the new technology, it makes it easier to recognize the lines in the facsimile automatically. We'll be able to link on the level of a line. So when you click on a line in the picture, you'll be able to highlight the line in the text and vice versa. Although, as I said earlier, whether we can do that on the level of the word is less clear. We're concerned about support for touch devices, and we're not sure how to deal with this yet. As some of you may know, with the advent of touch devices, whether they're those that use iOS, like the iPad or the iPhone, or those Android-based touch devices, the interface for touch devices is very different from the interface for the computers we're used to. In the life of Paul the Simple, I made a lot of use of the hover or mouse over features, where you move your cursor over a location in the text. You don't click, you don't press, you just move over it and something appears. Well, there's no such thing on a touch device as mouse over. When you touch something, you've clicked it. There is only one way to interact with it. And what that means is that if we want these features to work on touch devices, and we do because touch devices are growing and they're useful, if we want these to work on touch devices, we need to change the interface. Now, it's deceptive for us to think that, well, if you move the mouse over something, why don't you just move your finger over it? Well, the difference is that once you've moved your finger over something, you've touched it. That's a click. Your finger is not the same as a mouse. Let me say that again. This is your finger. This is a mouse. They are not the same. I want to move to more of a workstation environment for the edition of the Codex Suprasълski. In the Paul the Simple edition, we have linking between the folio view and the paragraph view, but a lot of our links are still dead ends. When you conduct a linguistic search or a full text search or a levitised search, you get a report, but you have to hit the back button or you have to go to a new search. That's not going to happen in the Codex Suprasълski edition. There will be somewhere to go wherever you are. And our main reason for doing this is that the goal of the Paul the Simple edition was to support students. The goal of this edition is going to be to support scholars. There are some design considerations in an electronic edition that, in this respect, electronic editions are inferior to paper editions. When I work with a paper edition, I can have 10 books open on my table, and I can look at all of them. But my screen is a certain size. I can't have 10 windows open. I mean, I can switch between them, but it becomes hard to manage. And I certainly can't have 10 little frames and panels, all of which are very tiny. So we have to decide how many frames or panels we can have open. We have to decide the extent to which it makes sense to use pop-ups and the extent to which it doesn't. And we have to deal with that limited inventory of user interactions. User interactions are limited even on a computer. You can click, you can double-click, you can right-click, you can mouse over, you can mouse out. That's not a lot. I mean, there are a few others, but it's not a lot. On a touch device, it's even more limited. So we have to think, given limited screen real estate and a limited number of interactive events, what's the best way for us to make use of these resources to deliver the information in a way that's transparent. I want to say a few words about this project from the perspective of digital humanities, because sometimes the goals of electronic editions sometimes those of us who produce electronic editions do not communicate our goals well. Digital humanities is humanities. The technology is secondary. The whole point of this edition is to let us do philology. So to this extent, it doesn't have to be the newest, it doesn't have to be the shiniest, it doesn't have to be the most entertaining, it has to be the most philologically useful. If you can't do research with this edition that you couldn't do otherwise, then what's the point of doing it? The design principles for an electronic edition in a digital humanities project have to be understood in the context of that project. We're not going to design the same website as Amazon or eBay or somebody else. Most professional websites are designed to let you buy something as quickly as possible. Websites for scholarly work are designed for you to linger. So we want to design this edition with an understanding of the way scholars look at their materials. And what that means is a lot of standard design principles don't apply to what we're doing. We have to think about our goals and we have to conceive of our own design principles, keeping in mind what our users are going to want to do. One important difference is that our target users are repeat visitors. People who study the Codex Suprasълski aren't just going to go there for a minute and go away and never come back. They're going to stay there. And what that means is that we can make a richer site, we can require people to learn a little bit about how to get around in the site, because they're going to come back. We don't have to sell them something in the first 30 seconds. Nonetheless, the user interface has to be intuitive and it has to be unobtrusive. It should be natural, it should be easy to use, it should be something where you don't have to read the manual. Thank you very much for your attention.